Communist Party of China will be holding its once in 5 years National Congress tomorrow. Now, the president of the world's second largest economy, Xi Jinping, is expected to secure an unprecedented third 5-year term as the head of the government, the party and also the Chinese military. So there is a lot of secrecy that in fact hangs over the proceedings of the event that is expected to begin from tomorrow. But according to reports, the 20th Congress is expected to produce a set of new leaders who are almost exclusively handpicked by Xi Jinping. The Chinese Communist Party has a history of over 100 years. It presently has 96 active million members who are led by the Central Committee and the Politburo. Their top cadre form the powerful Politburo Standing Committee with just 1 day left for the meeting. There are some key questions that need some immediate answers. So firstly, what is at stake at this year's meeting? With regards with the political and the economic system of the country, there are no significant changes that are expected to be announced. Much of the opposition within China has been crushed with the use of an anti-corruption campaign. Although Xi Jinping has said that he wants to clean up the system, many within China have said that he's used the anti-corruption campaign to actually pull down his opponents. Now, the country's zero-COVID policy has also placed tens of millions of people under quarantine, severely restricting travel and also badly affecting the Chinese economy. However, the Chinese government has insisted that such tight COVID-19 controls is the only way to prevent a wider outbreak in the world's most populous nation. Now, the second key question, how will the Congress affect China's foreign policy? Are there any big changes that are expected? Now, China's assertive foreign policy has, of course, prompted a bit of a backlash from the United States, Europe and its regional neighbors. The sticky point in its relationship with the West and also with some of its neighbors, of course, are Beijing's increasingly assertive policy with respect to the South China Sea, where China claims pretty much the whole of the South China Sea as its own domain. The close alignment of its foreign policy with Russia and also refusal to criticize Moscow's invasion of Ukraine are so the sticking points which, of course, stand out in terms of the friction that China has been experiencing with the West. And also there's this all-important question of what happens with Taiwan. Remember, Xi Jinping has repeatedly said in the past that if need be, he would not shy away from unifying Taiwan with mainland China with force if need be. So all of these are some of the key issues globally which matter for China. And tomorrow, of course, is the day when we expect Xi Jinping could, of course, secure an unprecedented third term as the leader of the Chinese nation. And also to give us more insights in terms of what, of course, can be expected at the Chinese Congress that happens tomorrow, we're being joined by Jean-Pierre Cabestan, who's the Emeritus Professor at the French National Center for Scientific Research. Now, Professor, thank you very much indeed for taking time out and speaking to us here on WION. This is a key moment in terms of what happens in China. Xi Jinping is expected to secure an unprecedented third term. Do you see his policies now, once he secures a third term, being any different from what he's done before so far?
Well, I think Xi Jinping will try to carry on the policies he has implemented in the last 10 years, or in particular in the last 5 years. I think one of the important objectives of the coming 5 years will be common prosperity for the whole Chinese society. The problem is that China's economy is slowing down. There are more tensions with the United States, as you have indicated. And there is also a growing frustration within the Chinese society about the endless fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. And there is no light at the end of the tunnel in China regarding, how can life come back to normal for everyone, 1.4 billion people in mainland China. So there are a number of question marks, and what I presume for the coming years that Xi Jinping will of course be assured in all his positions, but at the same time he will face more headwinds and more challenges both within China but also outside of China.
Absolutely, indeed. China is, of course, expected to face more challenges both domestically and also in terms of its foreign policy. I want you, Professor, to weigh in terms of how things have changed under Xi Jinping, because under the previous leader in China, under Hu Jintao, there was this doctrine of the peaceful rise of China. And there's a clear break from that doctrine. And now what we are witnessing under Xi Jinping is a more assertive and a belligerent China that is not shy of picking up conflicts. Do you expect this policy to actually now get much harder in the third term of Xi Jinping?
I think it's very hard to tell. I think his intention and the intention of his faction is to double down on all these issues, to assert China's power in the Taiwan Strait, in the South China Sea, on the Indian border, with all its neighbors, in particular vis-à-vis the United States and also Japan. So that's the objective, clearly, and to sort of accelerate the unification with Taiwan by whatever means can be used. At the same time, I see some opposition within the Chinese Communist Party to this strategy, which is perceived as too risky and maybe bringing more additional challenges to a country which is facing fresh economic difficulties and which will need to make sure that the economy will still grow in a context which is a context of inflation and maybe stagflation around the world. So I think it's going to be harder for him to continue without any opposition within the party these objectives.
Right. Now, Xi Jinping, Professor, is someone who sees himself as a man on a mission. Now, the very thorny issue of Taiwan is something that Xi Jinping has repeatedly spoken about. He has said that he would not mind unifying the territory of Taiwan by force if needed. But the United States has insisted, the present President Joe Biden has said that if Taiwan is invaded militarily by China, then the United States will, of course, get involved. Do you think Xi Jinping would want to risk a direct confrontation with the United States by trying to invade Taiwan once he gets his third term?
I think it's up to him to trigger World War III. I think he will have to think twice before embarking into an military adventure against Taiwan, because I think that the Chinese government has got the message loud and clear that the U.S. won't stay idle and will intervene in the conflict. That means that the risk of direct confrontation, military confrontation between China and the U.S. will be very likely in case of a war in the Taiwan Strait, which means that there is a risk, of course, of nuclearization of the conflict, because we have here two nuclear powers confronting each other directly. So I think that will compel, I guess, the Chinese government, and not only Xi Jinping, but the rest of the leadership, to think twice before embarking into such an adventure.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Professor, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.